today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to GPS Global Paradigm.
There you go. All right. So you guys should be able to hear me now. All right. So this is what we're going to be doing on the show today. We're going to be looking at the health of the migrant population because of the fact that it could definitely have an impact on your health. All right. And at beginning in the second portion of the show, the second segment of the show, we're going to actually have a medical doctor come on who can tell you a little bit more about this from a healthcare perspective. But in the meantime, what I will do is I will set the stage for what we're going to be discussing today until Dr. Marcus Cooper comes on at 2:30 p.m. All right. So in July of last year, July 20th to be exact, 2022, the first World Report on Health of Refugees and Migrants was launched by the World Health Organization in the framework of the WHO's Health and Migration Program. It was published in July of 2022. And the report brings together the available evidence on the health challenges faced by migrants and refugees in the migration route and in countries of transit and arrival in the 6 WHO regions, namely Africa, Europe, Eastern Mediterranean, Southeast Asia, the Americas, and Western Pacific. And it highlights good practices in place and further policies and actions that need to be implemented for health of migrants and refugees to be protected worldwide. 82,000 documents from scientific and gray literature published in the official languages of the WHO were collected and analyzed by a team of experts summarizing evidence concerning chronic and infectious diseases, reproductive and maternal and child health, mental and occupational health, including the impact of COVID-19, in addition to health status. And the report analyzed the main determinants of health and the barriers to healthcare for migrants and refugees in the different regions. Now, you may say, why should we care? Well, keep listening and you will understand exactly why. Because as I said on the outset of the show, at the very beginning, the health of the migrant population could definitely have a direct impact on the health of the general population. And this is why you should care. The report is the result of a broad international collaboration and already done in the 2018 report on the health of refugees and migrants in the WHO European region. It was produced with the scientific and financial contribution of the INMP. Now, I'm going to play a couple of clips as we prepare for the arrival of Dr. Cooper at 2:30. And this is just going to give us a little bit of a background, beginning with more on the launch of the report. And then we're going to be talking about why migrants' health is everyone's health. So let's begin with the first clip talking about or setting the stage for the launch of the report.
WHO is proud to launch the first world report on the health of refugees and migrants. 1 in every 8 people on our planet is a refugee or migrant, and the numbers are growing. With conflicts, climate change, growing inequality, and global emergencies such as the COVID-19 pandemic, more and more people will be on the move. Like anyone else, refugees and migrants have the right to the highest attainable standard of health. But the health needs of refugees and migrants are often neglected or unaddressed in the countries they pass through or settle in. They face multiple barriers, including out-of-pocket costs, discrimination, and fear of detention and deportation. Many countries do have health policies that include health services for refugees and migrants, but too many are either ineffective or are yet to be implemented effectively. The WHO World Report on the Health of Refugees and Migrants is a landmark and an alarm bell. It provides a comprehensive overview of refugee and migrant health demonstrating wide disparities between the health of refugees and migrants and the wider populations in their host countries. For example, many migrant workers are engaged in the so-called 3D jobs, dirty, dangerous, and demanding, without adequate social and health protection or sufficient occupational health measures. The report also highlights a fundamental knowledge gap. Refugees and migrants are virtually absent from global surveys and health data, making these vulnerable groups almost invisible in the design of health systems and services. But it's not all bad news. The report also highlights policy trends and examples of good practices from around the world. And it offers a strategic vision for a set of collective responses to protect and promote the health of migrants and refugees. We hope governments will use this report to develop evidence-informed policies and actions, and we hope advocates will use it in their efforts to call for inclusive health systems. WHO is calling on governments and organizations that work with refugees and migrants to work together and to empower them through participatory governance, to include them in the data, to prioritize them in research, and to include them in social protection schemes and financial protection in accessing health systems worldwide. Because health for all means all, including refugees and migrants.
Okay, so if you haven't already done so, like and share this show, like and share, because you're going to learn some things during this show today that could be very alarming, cause for concern about the impact that the migrant population in the country is probably already having on the health of the general population. And so we're going to be looking at what the World Health Organization recommends, and we're going to be hearing from medical doctors and experts who are themselves former migrants, former refugees. So they will be speaking from both ends of the spectrum. They will be speaking as healthcare experts and providers, as well as persons who would have lived through the ordeal of being migrants from their native countries to other countries. So, some highlights of the report. Over the past decade, the number of international migrants, including refugees on which the report is focused, almost doubled, with a total of 281 million people on the move worldwide. And that figure is taken in 2020, 281 million people on the move worldwide. It is believed that more than 47,296 people died on migration journeys worldwide between 2014 and 2021, urging to work for safe migration paths. And phenomena such as climate change, conflicts, and urbanization continue to influence both migration, immigration, and the health needs of migrants and refugees. Now, refugees and migrants are affected by the same health determinants as the general population. However, their migratory status can represent a health determinant within itself that, combined with the other individual, such as genetic, gender, personal behavior, and age, and social and economic, such as education, health, literacy, income, and social status, employment, social support networks, etc., determinants play a role in the different phases of the migratory cycle and makes them particularly vulnerable concerning health. Focusing on individual characteristics, migrant women and girls, for instance, are at greater risks of threats such as physical and sexual violence. And as women living in the host countries have specific health needs around childbirth, hygiene, and physical security. Also, unaccompanied or separated children are particularly at risk for physical and sexual violence, as well as for mental health distress and disorders. Shifting to social and economic environments, displacement and migration often interrupt education, and lower levels of insecurity may worsen the physical and mental health of refugees and migrants. Lower levels of education have been associated with poorer physical and mental health outcomes. Economic insecurity may worsen the physical and mental health of refugees and migrants, in addition to being a barrier to accessing health services. Living and working conditions also impact the health of migrants and refugees, for example, in terms of the risks associated with being employed in what is known as the 3D, dirty, dangerous, and demanding jobs, or living in unsafe accommodations at high risk for injuries and trauma, or with overcrowding and inadequate ventilation that can contribute to the spread of communicable diseases. So, in other words, because of all of the factors just mentioned, if you have a population of people who are at a higher risk of contracting certain diseases, or come to your country with these diseases already, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that you need to be concerned about the possible spread of those diseases to the general population, because it's not like the immigrants come and remain in place where they live, in the shanty towns, for instance. No, they go out into the community, they look for work, they interact with everyone. And so if they are sick with something like tuberculosis, that doesn't stay within their community. So you need to be concerned about this, because it could be impacting your health. And when Dr. Cooper comes on, he will be able to give us specific reasons why that could be taking place. In the meanwhile, we're going to hear from one of the experts at the WHO's press conference when it was launching this report, who again is himself a former immigrant. And in this clip, he's going to talk about why migrant health is everybody's health concern. So listen to this.
Professor Abdulrazak Gurna, the winner of the 2021 Nobel Prize for Literature, a former refugee and a signatory of today's report. Professor, it's an honor to have you here, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I've had the opportunity to be, in some respects, in the shoes of the millions of displaced people globally, and have the challenge and privilege to voice their experiences. The physical, economic, and psychological challenges posed by migration and displacement and integration in host communities are often misheard, overlooked, or misperceived. I welcome how this report assembles available global evidence on the health of people on the move, international migrants, and those forcibly displaced. How it collects this information in a single authoritative document. I'm grateful for how it shines a light on the health risks, challenges, barriers, and needs these populations face every day in every corner of the world. I urge planners, policymakers, and donors alike to use the wealth of information found in this report to inform decision-making. I would also like to invite them to consider the action points for governments and other stakeholders around the world to step up efforts and make good health and well-being a reality for all members of society, of which refugees and migrants are an integral part. concrete steps towards protecting and promoting the health of refugees and migrants are steps closer to our health too.
Now, I know what some of you are saying, Michelle, come on. Like, we are already carrying such a burden when it comes to healthcare for illegal immigrants. We hear the stories all the time about, the fact that you go to the maternity ward and it's mostly, foreigners, and the strain because they're being provided free healthcare in the Bahamas. And we've heard the stories time and time again. And while I understand the level of frustration that many Bahamians are feeling, and the obvious burden to our national treasury when it comes to having to fund much of this healthcare because it is being offered freely, we would be in a far worse position, I dare say, if we chose to ignore health concerns of this population, because, as I would have said earlier, it's not like they are, not interacting with the rest of the population. And so if we decide to stick our head in the sand and pretend that this is not a reality, that's not going to help us at all. So we need some kind of middle ground, I believe. You can't ignore, if somebody comes to your country with TB, for instance, you can't ignore the fact that they have TB because they are an illegal immigrant, because that TB could spread to other people in the population, including you. So whereas you may say, but we already spending so much on healthcare, it is very necessary to make sure that we are protecting ourselves by providing the necessary health care. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, case in point, and I think among the countries of the world grappling with this, the Bahamas has a pretty decent record in terms of providing free health care. Challenge is, though, that when it came to things like COVID-19 and what was determined to be the best route of treatment for or intervention for COVID-19, namely the vaccines, do you realize that the migrant population in the country was not eligible? I try to be diplomatic in the words that I use. Was not being offered the opportunity to be vaccinated. And my question was, why not? Because if you're telling me that COVID-19 is such a dangerous virus, is it only dangerous to a certain segment of a population? Could it not spread from one population to another, one community to another? So why was it that the migrant population was not afforded the same opportunity, if you want to call it that, to be vaccinated against COVID-19? If you're telling me that scientifically everyone needed to be vaccinated, how is it that in this country, if you didn't have a particular piece of paper to say, like a NIB card or a voter's card or a passport, a Bahamian passport, then you weren't eligible to get a shot? So my question was this: okay, you could argue we want to protect our people first, but are our people going to be exposed to others who are not receiving this quote unquote protection? So how much sense does this make? These are the kinds of questions as it relates to equity in healthcare for everyone within your country, whether or not they are citizens or illegal immigrants or irregular migrants. So these are the types of questions that need to be answered. Why is it that this was not offered to everyone, to protect everyone, if you're saying to me that this is the best protection necessary? Was it not counterproductive to leave that population out? Or was there some other decision behind that? Dr. Cooper, Marcus Cooper, should be joining us in a few minutes. In the meantime, we're going to be taking this commercial break. And then on the other side of the break, we're going to hopefully welcome Dr. Cooper and talk about this whole question of the health status of migrant communities within our population and how that can have a direct impact on the health status of the general population. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Global Paradigm Shift will return after this.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Glasses love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun.
Make sure you check out Tiki Bikini Hut on Junkanoo Beach, because if you go there and you mention GPS, that you are a listener of this show, then you will get yourself a sweet deal on your meal. So make sure you go and mention that you are you heard about them on GPS and get yourself a nice discount off of your lunch or dinner. It's a great atmosphere. The food is just ridiculously good. And it's a great place to go and hang out, with friends or with your significant other, and just enjoy the atmosphere. So we're talking today on this Wellness Wednesday. Oh, before I do that, let me share the numbers again that you can call: 3260271. 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, and the WhatsApp line is 8010271, 8010271. We're streaming live on Facebook, on the official Michelle Malcolm and the official Global 99.5 FM pages. You can also find us on YouTube. And definitely check us out on Cable Bahamas channel 974. And that's how you can join in on the show. Now, while we're waiting for Dr. Cooper to log in, I'm going to give you some more background information. Today, we're talking about the health of the migrant population and how it could and is probably already impacting the health of the general population. And Dr. Cooper, once he gets on the link on the stream, he will be able to give us more specific information about exactly what type of conditions we're talking about and how much at risk the general population is. But in the meantime, as we would have said in the first segment of the show, the WHO last July released a report about the health of immigrants worldwide, the migrant population worldwide, and the impact that it has on the general population. And like the general population, refugees and migrants face an increasing burden of non-communicable diseases, such as cardiovascular diseases and metabolic disorders, whose risks increase with the longer residence in the host country, particularly if at middle and high income. So things like cancer, diabetes, hypertension, etc., go undiagnosed even longer than in the general population. However, when it comes to things like communicable diseases, the evidence doesn't necessarily indicate that the refugees and migrants spread disease in host countries. However, environmental risk factors related to their living and working conditions can increase that susceptibility to infectious diseases. So we're going to, I see Dr. Cooper now is trying to log on. I see his camera is not up, but hopefully, let's see if we can add him to the stream. Dr. Cooper, can you hear me? You need to unmute your microphone.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So, while we were waiting for you to come on, we were talking about the fact that the health of a migrant population, illegal immigrants or irregular migrants, whatever you want to call them, could definitely have an impact on the health of the general population when it particularly comes to communicable diseases. And I'd like you to give us a little bit more information about the possibility of that happening, why this is something that we as a general population should be concerned about.
So there are a lot of factors that are involved with the transmission of disease.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned communicable diseases. That's one aspect of it. And there are non-communicable diseases to a certain degree.
Right.
There are some things, and this is the interesting part of some of the research that I'm doing, is the possible and potential relationship between immigration and what we now consider to be, or what is currently or commonly considered to be non-communicable diseases,
Okay.
in particular with cancer. So with communicable diseases, you have notable ones would be things like tuberculosis, would be things like HIV. In my particular discipline, the communicable diseases that we see that may be related to immigration issues would be hepatitis B,
Mm.
where we do know that hepatitis B is endemic in Haiti, just one of the populations that we seem to be having some challenges with in our immigration sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And when we say that it's endemic in Haiti, we mean that it's suspected that more than 2% of the population is infected with hepatitis B.
Mm.
And there could be some implications for the Bahamas, particularly because we don't really have national screening programs for persons who wish to become citizens of the country. And
Right.
so that's a potential, and because we have a lot of illegal immigration, uh, persons of any ethnicity or nationality coming into the country, we would want to make sure that they're screened for communicable diseases.
What I find interesting about what you just said, though, is that it's not just the communicable diseases that we have to be concerned about, but based on your research, you are saying that there's a possible link between the non-communicable diseases that Bahamians are experiencing and the presence of the migrant population. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, here's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Hepatitis B is one potential communicable disease that can be influenced by illegal immigration.
Okay.
Hepatitis B is a disease that, in most instances, goes unnoticed. The majority of people who have hepatitis B are unaware that they have it. There are no symptoms until there's some potential complications with the liver. People can be infected with hepatitis B from birth and not know for decades, 30, 40 years, that they are infected with hepatitis B. The only way that we detect that a person is infected with hepatitis B currently in the country is one, when mothers are presenting for antenatal care, there's some screening of all mothers to see if they're infected with hepatitis B as well as some other infectious diseases. We may pick up people who are hepatitis B positive. When people go to donate blood, so the blood banks will screen for, among many other communicable diseases, they will screen for hepatitis B. And then if somebody is seeking care from a health professional and blood tests are being performed and the liver tests in particular are elevated, it will then prompt the physician to screen for hepatitis B as well as hepatitis C and possibly hepatitis A, and then it's picked up. But persons primarily, usually, do not have symptoms. The interesting thing about hepatitis B is that not only does it cause this chronic infection, but it can also cause liver cancer. Liver cancer is not considered to be a communicable disease, but certainly the end result of chronic hepatitis B that goes unnoticed and untreated can cause liver cancer. The second potential relationship between immigration and a non-communicable disease is with stomach cancer. It seems like a stretch, but let me tell you of the potential relationship. There's an organism that goes by the name of Helicobacter pylori, or H. pylori. H. pylori is a bacteria that, when it gets into the human digestive tract, will attach itself to the lining of the stomach. That in turn causes inflammation of the stomach. In most cases, that inflammation will lead to what we call gastritis. Gastritis is the term that we use to define any inflammation of the stomach. In some cases, that gastritis will go on to form or to cause an ulcer of the stomach. And in a small percentage of patients who have gastritis or an ulcer of the stomach will go on to form gastric cancer. So we are seeing an uptick from the reports that I have from the National Cancer Registry that we're seeing more gastric cancer cases in the Bahamas. We know that this H. pylori bacteria can be spread through untreated water. And the issue that we're having with shanty towns presents a unique, not a unique challenge, but potentially a unique set of circumstances where persons living in shanty towns may not have proper sanitation. They may not have running water. Certainly, they may not have the ability to dispose of waste. And so whatever sanitation practices are in use could potentially affect the water supply. When you have poor sanitation practices, as you may have in underdeveloped or developing countries, wastewater and human waste can contaminate the water table. The water table is where many people get their well water from. And we know from research that's been done previously in other countries that the ordinary chlorination that we do, reverse osmosis, etc., does not remove this H. pylori bacteria. And so people can get infected if they're accessing and they're tapping into a water table that has or that is close to some place that does not have proper sanitation, that there is a potential for this H. pylori bacteria to be transmitted through the water table to anybody who is accessing that for consumption. If it's not treated properly, and in many cases, even if it is treated, the potential for infection is there, the potential for ingestion is there, the potential for then H. pylori to cause gastritis, peptic ulcer, and gastric cancer is there. And so we need to be aware of that and mitigate these problems by doing proper testing of our water supply, which I'm going to be looking into very shortly.
Wow. So to break that down, what you're saying is that if there's a contamination of the water table because of unsanitary conditions, there is a possibility that that water could end up in the taps of your home. And you are using it to, is it only if you're cooking with it, or could you be at risk if you, let's say you use it to wash your dishes, or, you know, how much of a risk are we talking about when you use that water in your home of the possibility of you becoming infected with this particular virus, which could eventually lead to cancer? What kind of use are we talking about here?
Well, first of all, let me make it clear that it's not a virus, it's a bacteria.
It's a bacteria, okay.
Yes,
okay.
It's a bacteria, that's correct.
Right. Okay.
And it's difficult to say in my reading and research, I can't quantify how much bacteria is necessary to cause human infection. But certainly if water is contaminated with H. pylori, if you're using it for any purpose, from brushing your teeth, to washing your food, to cooking with it, to drinking it, washing your dishes, any of those means, if it comes in contact with what you're eating,
Wow.
and you ingest that water, can lead to H. pylori infection. Now, I can tell you that there have been studies that have been conducted in the Bahamas that have shown that a significant proportion of our population is already infected with H. pylori. A study was conducted, and I'm blanking on the dates, but one of our own local gastroenterologists, Dr. Floyd Carter, he tested children at a school, and almost close to, with the methods that they were using, almost close to 60% of those kids were infected with H. pylori.
Wow.
That's correct. In my own private office, I've been keeping records since 2018, and I can tell you that close to 50% of people who come to me and the symptoms that they have, which are very common symptoms in our population, gas, which everybody thinks they have gas, bloating, nausea. When I check these people for H. pylori, about 50% of them are infected with this bacteria. So we know that our prevalence rates of H. pylori are high, and we know the impact of what sanitation and poor water supplies, untreated water, unscreened water, untested water supplies can do for this transmission of H. pylori. And so the potential for these complications from H. pylori infection are possible, which ultimately lead to stomach cancer.
Amazing. 1 + 1 still equals 2. So it just makes sense that, this is something that we need to pay attention to and not, pretend that it's not a possibility. Particularly with the numbers that you're putting out there right now in terms of who's already infected with, that is concerning. Okay, we have a question that's being posed by one of our Facebook viewers. Rain says, when will your research be completed and ready for public reviewing?
That's a good question. I've just with all of the talk about immigration, more so shanty towns, is what really piqued my interest in this whole process, and the fact that I do H. pylori testing regularly in my office, and seeing the amount of people who are infected with H. pylori, and the numbers that I've seen since I've started in 2018 have been increasing. And I noticed a spike right after Hurricane Dorian, particularly in people that I was seeing from Abaco,
okay,
from Grand Bahama. And so that's what when I kind of said, maybe there is a correlation between what's happening, there being an unreliable water supply in these islands, and seeing more of this H. pylori bacteria when people were coming to the office. So I've been doing a lot of reading around the topic, getting my data. I'm also going to be asking my colleagues who are also doing H. pylori testing to tap into their statistics and see if we can get a better handle. There's very, very little research about H. pylori infection in the Caribbean. Very little. Quite a bit of it is done in Latin American countries, but in the English-speaking Caribbean, there is a paucity of data. And so I'm going to be tapping into hopefully my colleagues' databases, getting some numbers, and then hopefully in a few months, we'll be able to have some preliminary figures.
Rain is also asking the question, would you advise us not to use the public water system then?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I don't have any evidence to suggest right now that the public water system is affected. I don't have that. And so I certainly don't want to be an alarmist and say that the Bahamian water table is contaminated and you should not drink tap water or the municipal water supply. I definitely don't want to say that.
Because that is treated. That water supply is treated. If you're on what we call government water, that's treated.
That's correct. However, we do know from other studies that treated water may not be enough
to kill the bacteria.
Correct. This is a very sturdy bacteria. And if you think about it, if you know anything, and most people don't, but I'll just tell you, in order to live in the acidic environment of the stomach, you have to be extremely robust,
Robust.
resistant to live in that sort of acidic environment. The stomach is a very acidic environment.
Yes.
I mean, it converts things like steak into liquid,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is a result of acid exposure and the churning motion of the stomach. You liquefy pork chops. So you're talking about an environment that is extremely caustic and acidic. And we know that in order to treat the H. pylori bacteria, we have to use three different drugs, two different antibiotics, minimum, sometimes three, when there are resistant strains, with some acid reducing medication for 14 days. So it's not something that dies easily. And there are reports, I'm pulling a blank right now, but there are reports in the scientific literature about H. pylori being found in bottled water. And so even with the purification process or sterilization process that you would assume that most bottled water plants would go through, they were still able to detect this H. pylori bacteria. So I would not say stay away from the public water supply, but I do intend to have it tested and see if we can indeed see if this bacteria is present in any of our water supply.
Another question from Maureen, what um, methods would kill this bacteria? I guess before it gets into the body, what can you do?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer for that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the answers for that right now, but I will have the answers for that once the research is completed.
Wow. This is very concerning, particularly seeing that you're already getting these high numbers of evidence of persons being already impacted by this. Um, as far as you're aware, what steps are being taken by our Ministry of Health, our health department? I'm assuming that the work that you're doing, the research that you're doing, is a private effort, or have you been contracted to do this work on behalf of public health system?
No, this is a private effort. This is purely out of personal interest. Being a gastroenterologist in the country and seeing so many people presenting with symptoms and then
Mhm.
being treated, being identified as having this bacteria. So this is not a government-funded research. This is something that I'm undertaking on my own, and it's an extension of research that I'm doing with other cancers, with colon cancer in particular, which is my primary focus, at least trying to find out what our numbers are like in the country. But also because our rates of cancer are just very, very high. And we're seeing people in the country, at least I've been seeing people, and I think my colleagues would agree, being diagnosed with cancer at younger ages
Mhm.
and at later stages. So early 40s and late 30s, people are being diagnosed with stage 4 cancers. And besides our gene pool, there must be some other issues that are contributing
Pretty much, yeah.
to our high rates of cancer. There's got to be something else going on.
Yeah.
And so because our scientific data has been so limited, there's not an abundance of research that comes out of the Caribbean. It's difficult to kind of pull from reliable sources. And so I figured I'd do what I can to make a contribution in that area so that we do have some numbers about what's going on in the country.
All right, we have to take a break. On the other side of the break, we're going to answer a couple more questions from Facebook, and then we're going to also take a look at more from the WHO's press conference when it launched its report on the health of migrants. So all of that is straight ahead. Stay with us. This is GPS.
global paradigm shift will return after this.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Longevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting sugar-free berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, tints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
It's gotten harder and harder to get your daily requirement of vital nutrients from food alone. Without additional vitamin and nutrient support, your health and well-being can suffer drastically. That's why Z-Radical was specifically formulated. It combines a blend of antioxidant-rich vitamins, minerals, and botanicals with the protective powers of fucoidan to help fill the gaps from lack of nutrients in your foods. The core of Z-Radical is fucoidan, a naturally occurring polysaccharide that helps stimulate immune reaction, protecting you against inflammation and oxidative stress. We harvest this powerful mineral-rich nutrient from brown seaweed, harvested only from the world's most pristine ocean waters to ensure the purest quality. It's then extracted using cold process technology to ensure maximum levels of bioavailability. Then we add essential vitamins that help to protect your cardiovascular and nervous systems and are crucial for optimal immune and neurological function. Z-Radical also includes a proprietary blend of delicious antioxidant-rich fruits and berries. This great-tasting combination helps your body combat free radical imbalances that can contribute to a variety of degenerative conditions like arthritis and heart disease. Z-Radical. Experience the power of fucoidan with antioxidant-rich berries, 8 essential vitamins, and more to provide you with potent health benefits. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
All of it.
And welcome back. Yes, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. We are streaming live on Facebook on the Global 99.5 FM and Michelle Malcolm pages. You can check us out there. The telephone numbers to call 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272. The WhatsApp line for calls and messages, 8010271, 8010271. You can also check us out on YouTube on the official Michelle Malcolm channel, as well as the official Global 99.5 FM channel. And we're also airing on Cable Bahamas channel 974. So like and share the show. If you're on Facebook, let everybody know that we are on the air on this Wellness Wednesday. We're talking about a matter that is of significant importance to your health, that being the possible impact of ill health in the migrant population, and that translating or transferring to the general population. That's what we're going to be covering on the show today. So before I move forward with more questions for our guest, Dr. Marcus Cooper, we have a couple of comments coming in on Facebook. So let's see. This one says, this is from Terry Thomas. Why are we placing majority of the situation on our Caribbean people, especially the Haitians? What about the millions of tourists that come to the Bahamas? Over 90% of these tourists are Caucasian. Tourists are never screened with medical dispositions. How do you respond to that, doctor? Wait, you're muted. Let's unmute you. Okay, go ahead.
Right. So tourists are here for a very short while. Um, and so they tend not to contribute much to the burden of disease locally.
Mm.
Just like if you travel to any country, there are certain things that you have to be vaccinated for in some countries, but in most instances, there's no significant screening that occurs for someone who's only there for a short stay.
Mm-hmm.
If you relocate, then I think there's some more screening that applies. So certainly, if you're domiciled in the country and you come from another area where certain things are endemic, some screening probably takes place. So from a tourism perspective, I don't think it's necessary to screen everybody who comes into the country. COVID was different. It was a global pandemic. Um, Hundreds of thousands of people died from COVID or COVID related illness. And so that degree of screening was necessary. But in general, I don't think it's necessary or practical to screen every tourist who comes into the Bahamas. But when you have people who are living here and who are integrating into society, I do believe that some caution needs to be had to make sure that we're protecting the health of the citizens of the country.
I mean, when you're talking about the contamination of the water table, I don't see how tourists could contribute to the contamination of the water table if they're using proper sanitation in a hotel, for instance. Now, another question that could be raised is, we've heard reports about cruise ships dumping waste or gray water into our waters. Could that have some kind of impact on the health of the people, the health of the population because of contaminated water in the sea? Is that a concern as well for the research that you're doing?
I know that the public water supply is tested,
Mm-hmm.
and it's tested for coliforms. Coliforms are bacteria that are usually found in fecal matter, of which H. pylori is one of them. But the typical coliforms that are tested for E. coli and Shigella and these other things, there is testing that is done from public water systems, and as I've been told, from private water systems. So some testing is going on. I'm not aware of what happens when these cruise ships do dumping in the oceans around the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak to that, but I'm sure that the government is taking every effort or making every effort to mitigate against any sort of contamination of our water supply from that practice, and to stop that from happening in general because
Right.
of the nature of our business, which is tourism.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't speak to what the impact of those particular situations are, but when you have people that are living together in communities or nearby communities where proper sanitation is not the rule, right? And I think in most instances, I can't say the only, so I want to take that back. In many instances, the only way that you can be living in the country without proper sanitation is if you're in an unregulated community. Otherwise, there should be some ways that the government is able to put a stop to that. But
We do have some inner city communities that still don't have running water. and people are using outhouses and that kind of thing. Could that also have an impact?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if there are latrines, these ways that I've been reading about where waste is just kind of, I don't know how much that's happening. Um, but, in a country as wealthy as the Bahamas, with the amount of resources that we have, that would be very disheartening if we're still having that going
Trust
on.
me, we are. We are. In many of the inner city communities, there are people who don't have proper sanitation and are using outhouses in 2023. Still
Wow.
happening.
And so, yeah, so if that is the case, then absolutely, I've been reading that the water table in the Bahamas, there was a document that was put out some years ago, um, by a company in the US, and looking at the water table in different islands, and New Providence was a part of that. And the water table is within 20 feet. And so if you have a latrine, or if you have an outhouse and you're kind of just kind of digging down, then sure, absolutely, it's conceivable that you're going to have some contamination of that water table in that area.
Wow.
And so yes, I mean, these are things that definitely, and this is one area that I guess I would want to focus my research on, is testing the
Inner
water
city
supply
communities. Yeah. Yeah.
around these areas,
Trust me.
because we think a lot about these communicable diseases, but now you have the potential relationship with non-communicable diseases and the cancer burden of
Mhm.
the Bahamas, and it should spark some concern.
Speaking of which, what is the role of environmental health in all of this? I have a comment from one of our Facebook viewers. It says, "Good afternoon. Newsflash: environmental health is not a real place. That's just a building where people get paid to sit around. They don't do anything." The same person continues and says, "Take a trip to environmental health, please. They be outside in the booth playing dominoes. They do not do research or anything at all." What is the role of environmental health in all of this?
That's above my pay grade. I'm not going to comment on that at all. I don't know. I'm
Okay.
not going to say anything disparaging about environmental health because I don't know, but I do know that the Water and Sewage Corporation, it tests the water supply,
Hmm.
and they're testing for coliforms, and I think they test not only public but private supplies as well. However, and this is what I'm getting at, that I want to get at, is whether or not our testing will detect H. pylori. This is a relatively new phenomenon as far as bacteria being found to or being implicated in causing a cancer.
Hmm.
That's not a common thing. I don't think there are any other bacteria that have been implicated to cause cancers. Viruses for sure.
Hmm.
HPV can cause cervical cancer and penile cancer, and we know that hepatitis B and hepatitis C can cause liver cancer. Uh, HPV can also cause throat cancer. We know about those viruses, but I think that H. pylori is very unique, and that it is the only bacteria, or definitely one of the only bacteria that has been found that can cause cancer. And so that's what makes it so important. And that's only, when I was in medical school and residency, um, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about H. pylori and this spectrum of disease. So it's still a relatively new, as far as medicine is concerned, a relatively new phenomenon.
Hmm.
And it's very possible that our testing procedures have not uh, been updated to screen for H. pylori. And certainly I know that that's the case in many other developing countries, according to what I've been reading.
This is very concerning. When you look at the fact that we do have a challenge with uh, non-regulated communities like shanty towns, but as I also pointed out, we also have many inner city communities that still don't have the proper sanitation that could also be contributing to this problem. Um, And based on what you're saying, because Bahamians believe that, well, if I just boil the water, I can be good. But if you're talking about an acidic environment like your stomach not being able to kill this bacteria, will boiling water make any difference? I would think
Yeah,
no.
I I don't think so. I don't think that that's enough. Particularly, but I can't say, right? Um, I should have had that information for you, but I don't. So I need to go and research that. Like, what is required to kill this organism in the water supply? Is chlorination enough? And if you're finding it, if there are reports of this being found in purified, bottled, commercially sold water, then clearly chlorination can't be enough. So I don't know exactly what method is required to kill the bacteria, but I will get back to you on that.
Very concerning indeed. So now that opens up a whole kettle of fish, because usually when people talk about the possibility of the health of irregular migrants impacting the general population, they think of a communicable disease like TB, for instance.
Correct.
Based on the WHO's research, overcrowded, unsafe living conditions and poverty make refugees and migrants more vulnerable to TB, and displacement and migration can make access and adherence to TB treatment more difficult, contributing to TB drug resistance. So, if the conditions in which these communities live makes it easier for the spread of TB, and obviously, like I said earlier in the show before you joined us, it's not like they're staying within their communities. They are going out into the general populace. They're working, they're interacting, etc. Obviously, that means that we, as a general population, need to be on high alert for conditions that are communicable, like a TB. Is there, as far as you're aware, is there an uptick in TB in the Bahamas right now? And could this be a contributing factor, or you're not aware, or you don't have information as far as that is concerned?
I don't have any information as far as that's concerned. We have an infectious disease department, division in the ministry that Dr. Nakia Forbes is in charge of, and she would probably have that information. I don't have any information about that.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you hope to? What impact do you hope that your research will have? Once that research is done, what do you hope that will happen with that information?
Well, I think the first thing that I hope to accomplish is to provide some data. You can't fix what you can't measure.
True.
And so we need our own local statistics. We need to know what our prevalence rates are for H. pylori. We need to know what our prevalence rates are for hepatitis B and hepatitis C. We should have screening guidelines for all of the above on who are the at-risk populations, who we need to be screening, and what is the process once someone is identified as having any of these infectious problems. I also am looking to point out what, if any, is the relationship between these infectious diseases and the burden of cancer in the country. Most of my interest has been focused on colon cancer, but as a gastroenterologist, the whole gastrointestinal tract is in my purview. And so the stomach, seeing patients being diagnosed with stomach cancer, young patients being diagnosed with stomach cancer. I want to know like what's contributing, and I've seen with my own eyes stomach cancers where H. pylori is florid. And the recommendations globally are that if you have these there's a process of going from gastritis, which is inflammation of the stomach,
Mm-hmm.
to stomach cancer. And we know that this gastritis can progress to something called intestinal metaplasia. It's a change in the lining of the stomach.
Mm.
And that change can then result in something called high-grade dysplasia, which is a precancerous condition. And we know that people with high-grade dysplasia will probably progress to cancer. And so there seems to be a direct correlation between this inflammation by the bacteria and what could progress to be cancer. So I would want to know, what are our rates of H. pylori, and are we tracking our rates of stomach cancers? And should we be screening more people for H. pylori? Sometimes it's difficult to do in the public system. And so for certain, in certain conditions where people come into the hospital and they have an ulcer, you find an ulcer when you do a procedure on them. Should we be treating them empirically? When I say empirically, without testing for H. pylori, but we know that the association with some ulcers are very high. Should we just be treating these people for H. pylori? Because we know that our rates are so high that the likelihood that H. pylori is present is very high as well. So I hope to answer some of these questions and provide some local statistics so that we can guide our healthcare professionals.
I have another question coming in from one of our Facebook viewers. Rain would like to know, should we add bleach when washing dishes? Would bleach kill this?
Again, I apologize because I don't have the information on what actually kills H. pylori in
Right.
water.
Right.
But you know what? I'm gonna do my research and I will forward that to you so you can give it to your viewers.
Well, clearly, gut health is extremely important in this conversation. I'm a proponent of holistic health, and we stress that you have to have a healthy gut because a damaged gut is the beginning of it's like the first step for many of these diseases that develop later on. So, how would you recommend that people take extra care of avoiding certain things that could be damaging to the gut so that you have that added layer of protection? Would that make a difference?
Well, I think the message about healthy lifestyles and making healthy choices
Mm-hmm.
affects everything, right? Every aspect of healthcare can in some way be related to your lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be many of the non-communicable diseases that we're seeing with high blood pressure and diabetes and heart disease and kidney failure and our burden of cancer. Somewhere along the line, there are risk factors that involve your lifestyle. And so the message needs to be consistent. It needs to be repetitive, that making healthy choices will very likely improve your lifespan and the quality of your life. So when I see people on a daily basis, I talk to them about our Bahamian diet, which is very low in fiber and high in fat and processed foods and red meats and things like that.
Yeah.
And we know that this is a risk factor for developing colon cancer. Obesity, because of the sedentary lifestyles and us just being lazy, is associated with colon cancer and many other cancers. I certainly believe that it's some way contributes to our high rates of breast cancer. We have the 5th highest rate of breast cancer on the planet.
Wow.
Some of that has to do with genetics, but I think a lot of it has to do with lifestyle. We have a pretty, prostate cancer, possibly not as much, but certainly cancers of the gastrointestinal tract are very heavily related to our diets, which are unhealthy in most instances, the lack of physical exercise, obesity, which seems to be an epidemic in the country from childhood straight up to adulthood. We're not a big smoking country. Um, our reliance our love of processed foods and high salt foods. All of these things contribute to an unhealthy lifestyle of which the complications are many. So when I counsel Bahamians when they come to the office, I tell them, I might be talking to you about colon cancer, but you have high blood pressure, you have diabetes, your cholesterol is high, you're on Crestor or Lipitor or one of these drugs, these medications. All these things are related to your lifestyle, and you need to kind of take control of that in order to see the benefits in all these other areas.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have a comment coming in from one of our Facebook viewers. Ramesh says sterilization at 121 degrees Celsius kills endotoxins and microorganisms and is a preserving technique. Boiling should, by extension, be able to kill HPV bacteria. Is this bacteria, doctor, the same as what is considered an endotoxin or a microorganism? Or are we talking two different systems here?
It's not an endotoxin. It is a microorganism, and microorganism is just the broad term to describe bacteria and viruses.
Mm-hmm.
HPV, which is human papillomavirus, is different from H. pylori.
Ah.
So that it's not the same. So
Right,
HPV is what we see with cervical cancer,
right,
with some penile cancers, with some throat cancers, but that is very different, and that's a virus, human papillomavirus.
But you're talking today is about a bacteria, which is a big
Talking
difference.
about a bacteria, which is a
Yeah.
difference. Correct. So one method of sterilization may not necessarily apply to the other.
Wow, this is very concerning, doctor. And I am just so sorry that you can't give us a full 2 hours, but I know you got things to do. And
But this gives me an opportunity to do some more research, and so that I can answer some of these questions,
yeah,
and then come back on the show and sort of finish it off.
door is always open. Let me know when you're available once you would have conducted your research. Let's talk about this, because I honestly believe that we are missing so much of this puzzle of health. We're only focusing on one aspect, and that is a mistake. And until we invite everyone to the table who can make some kind of contribution to this, I'm not surprised that we're number 5 in cancer in the entire world, based on our
Breast
lifestyle.
cancer.
Huh?
Breast cancer.
Breast cancer, based on our lifestyle, the diets that we're eating, the things that we're putting into our bodies that should not be there. Not surprising at all. I always say we'd fry water if we could. And, all of that contributes to this problem. But now when we're talking about adding on top of that, the layer of possible contamination, Lord help us. Doctor, thank you.
Well, I do want to say one thing before I leave. I want to commend the government for its recent initiative. They recently put out a report, and I'm in the process of trying to read it, about these non-communicable diseases and healthy lifestyles. And it's the beginning, right? It at least acknowledges the fact that we are aware of this problem, that we have tried to quantify this problem, and at least in principle, that we intend to do something about this problem. Health education is going to be a major, a very important aspect of what we do. I think many Bahamians just don't understand the correlation between what I'm putting in my mouth and what's happening to my health. They don't understand that when I'm eating rice for breakfast, how that affects my blood sugar. They don't understand when I'm eating that red not even sausage, that big thick red sausages.
With all that fat.
with all that fat.
The nitrates and nitrites that cause cancer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All this process, they don't see that, right? The fast foods. I mean, our fast food
Don't
companies.
get me started on that. You see that line at that new establishment? Did you see the
Oh,
line?
it is insane. And I mean, you know, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has decided that we're going to try and do something about this. And you got to put your money where your mouth is, right? You have to really allocate resources to trying to fix this problem because it is deep. It's deep. And we have to get to the kids because by the time you become an adult, your palate is fixed. When you smell that grease, your mouth starts to water. You've been smelling it your whole life and you want it. I went to the hospital to see a patient on Monday, and at least 4 people passed me with these big bags of KFC, bringing it in the hospital. Matter of fact, the patient who I went to see, the curtains were closed, and the relative was feeding her extra crispy KFC in the hospital.
You sure a relative wasn't somebody whose name was on top of their will, and they just was trying to rush them along?
No, it was the daughter. It was the daughter.
My God.
And so I'm telling you, there's this disconnect.
I think we lost.
We're doing what we're eating and what's happening to us. And so education is going to be paramount. Even in the schools, there should be curriculums about healthy eating and healthy choices and things like that. But at least we're making an effort. And
Dr. Cooper, I don't know if you can hear me at all. We're having some challenges with your feed. I think your internet connection may be dipping in and out. But I want to say thank you so much for giving us the hour that you were able to give us today. Continue to do the good work that you're doing. And hopefully, once it's all done, you'll have some time to come back on the show and we talk about your findings and what we all can do collectively to try to help to improve the health of this nation.
thank you. Thank you very much. And I look forward to coming back.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear more from the WHO's press conference when they were launching this report about the health of migrants. And there's some fascinating things that you're going to learn. So stick with us. We only have, less than half an hour left in the show. But I promise you, it's going to be some good information out there. You may not agree with everything that's going to be said, but you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. Stay with us. We'll be back after this.
Global Paradigm Shift will return after this.
At Lee Air, safety is our #1 priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 hyperimmune egg powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your longevity associate.
For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all: schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466.
One of the things I love about the mailboat is their relationship with Bahamas Air. I can earn travel points on my international freight and redeem them when I fly.
For me, online shopping is easy with Mailboat's U.S. addresses and regular freight delivery to Nassau. Plus, I can always prepay customs and freight, and they always notify me when my package arrives.
Yeah, a lot of people think the Mailboat is just for shipping, but they also offer a safe and secure storage facility at affordable rates, all in a central, convenient location.
We also offer passenger service into Freeport multiple times per week with a seating capacity of over 450 persons. With family movies on large screens, one hot meal included, and on-board lounge for snacks and soft drinks. We're the Mailboat. We're bridging people, products, and places.
Executive Printers is your one-stop shop for all your branding and customization needs. Letterheads, envelopes, business cards, invoices, share and gift certificates, rubber stamps, vouchers, funeral programs, brochures, flyers, banners, and promotional items like mugs, water bottles, mouse pads, and key rings, all with personable service and great quality. No project is too small or too large. For great turnaround and competitive pricing, make an executive decision. Call us at 393-5011.
Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. If you're late to the party today on this Wellness Wednesday, you can call us at 326-0271, 326-0271, 326-0272, 326-0272, or WhatsApp us 8010271. Call or text. We're streaming live on Facebook on the official Global 99.5 FM page, as well as the official Michelle Malcolm page. So if you did tune in late, you can always go back and watch the show in its entirety there, or on YouTube, where we're also streaming to the official Michelle Malcolm channel or the official Global 99.5 FM channel, and you can check us out on Cable Bahamas channel 974. So be sure to let everybody know that this is a show that they need to see, because this is a concern to all of us. So we began the show talking about the World Health Organization's report on the health of refugees and migrants, which was issued in July of 2022. And they explained that worldwide, more people are on the move now than ever before, yet many refugees and migrants face poorer health outcomes than the host populations. And addressing their health needs is therefore a global health priority and integral to the principle of the right to health for all. The key is to strengthen and maintain health systems by ensuring that they are refugee and migrant sensitive and inclusive. Health outcomes, they say, are influenced by a whole host of determinants. However, refugees and migrants face additional determinants such as precarious legal status, discrimination, social, cultural, linguistic, administrative, and financial barriers, lack of information about health entitlements, low health literacy, and fear of detention and deportation. So this groundbreaking publication outlines current and future opportunities and challenges and provides several strategies to improve the health and well-being of refugees and migrants. And it is an advocacy tool for national and international policymakers involved in health and migration. Now, you may say, well, why should we care? Well, if you tuned in late, then you definitely need to watch the rest of the show. We should care because the health of that population is very likely impacting the health of the general population. And so it's not just an isolated situation where you could say, well, they can keep their sickness to themselves. No, boo. It don't work like that. If they are sick in that community, because there is this intermingling, then there's a strong chance that the rest of us will become ill as well. So this is something that we definitely have to pay attention to. Now, in this clip from the WHO's press conference, we're going to hear from one of those two doctors who was himself a former immigrant. And one of the things that he is stressing, and again, he is someone who's on both sides of the question here. He's now a successful doctor, but he was once an illegal immigrant or irregular migrant, whatever you want to term it. And he is saying in this clip that suboptimal conditions that many of these migrants live in requires compassion if we are going to solve this problem once and for all.
Dr. Wahid Aryan is a refugee medical doctor from Afghanistan who has been appointed a United Nations Global Goals goalkeeper for his work helping to deliver the Sustainable Development Goals, including health, well-being, and education.
I'm a physician, I'm an author, I'm a humanitarian, I'm also a refugee, and all those can be possible. As a former refugee, it gives me immense happiness to contribute to the report, which clearly highlights that it's the experience of migration that is key to the health and well-being of refugees and migrants, who are some of the most vulnerable people across the globe. The report details the suboptimal health determinants which contribute to poorer health outcomes in refugees and migrants. I'd like to bring to life some of these suboptimal health determinants through my own story and through the story of my family going through conflict and through displacement. And that is one story out of 1 billion. So we have to treat each of these stories with the compassion that each one deserves. I was born in Kabul, Afghanistan during the Afghan-Soviet conflict in the 80s and spent the first 5 years hiding in cellars from the daily rockets, the bombs. We didn't have much food, and many children, including ourselves, suffered from whooping cough. We didn't have enough clothes. Our mother will go to the market to buy some of the Western clothes, mismatched colors, to try to keep us warm in winter. And after about 5 years, because it was becoming too dangerous for us, we decided to migrate to Pakistan, like millions of other refugees that went. We had to take a very dangerous route through mountains and through valleys because the normal borders were closed. We were not allowed to, and we had to go on donkeys and horses. And that is a similar situation when we see refugees now taking very dangerous routes because they don't have another alternative. The formal routes, the official routes, as we call them, are closed on their faces. We came under the attack 3 times, miraculously survived those attacks until we made it to the refugee camp. Initially, we started residing in a tent, like so many others, and again, the temperatures were rising up to 45 degrees with 1 fan, and a large family trying to use whatever we can to survive. And these are the sort of conditions that are ripe for several conditions, diseases, such as malaria and tuberculosis. Many of my family members, including myself, we got malaria, we survived that, and soon I contracted tuberculosis. That nearly killed me, but also inspired me to become a doctor. And again, the conditions that we see in refugee camps now in various parts of the world, they're not too dissimilar to the conditions that I experienced firsthand. Although we were safe from bombs, we were not physically safe, we were not socially safe, and we were not mentally safe. We went back to Kabul, Afghanistan in the 90s, and again we went through Civil War, which was a bloody street-by-street fight because of which we had to again reside in cellars hiding from the bombs and the rockets. And that's where most of my education happened because the schools were destroyed. So many of the refugees who we see, they have lost their childhood the same way as I did. They've lost access to education, which is a human right. And in 1999, when I was 15 years old, that's when my life was in danger, both physically as well as I was seeing a threat to the hope for me to become a doctor in the future to heal. My parents sent me away to the UK as a refugee. So that was another journey of refugee I had to take to come on my own to the UK as a 15-year-old child refugee with no family support, hardly any education, and about $100 in my pocket. But I also came with a hope to be able to live safely, to be able to study, to be able to contribute in the future. And that's how so many other refugees across the globe and immigrants, they come in, not only as a physical presence, but also with the hopes and the dreams. And despite suffering socially, not having much command of English, not being able to integrate as a result, also suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder as well. And the report clearly highlights that up to 22.1% of the population affected by conflict can be affected by mental health disorders. I was one of them. But despite all that, it was the compassion of the British people in the UK that helped me to realize my dream of becoming a doctor, going on to study at Cambridge University and Harvard until I became a doctor. Again, this is one example out of 1 billion. And I see all these refugees and migrants as dreamers. And if we see migration from the lens of compassion, regardless of the race, regardless of their background, not through a political or a racial division lens, which sadly is happening across the globe, I believe that's how we can build and strengthen our communities. And that's also a route to be able to reorient our existing healthcare system so we can achieve universal health coverage.
A very powerful presentation there. He who lives it knows it. And that is coming from the voice of one who lived it, but went on to become a very successful doctor in the UK who is now contributing to helping to fix the problem. Compassion, he says, is what is needed. Very fascinating indeed. All right, so we're going to take one more break. And then when we come back, we're going to look at, time permitting, the question of mental health and the need for screening. We'll be back after this. Stay with us.
Global Paradigm Shift will return after this.
Blood sugar levels play a key role in your appetite, weight gain, and overall health. When you have a blood sugar spike, you can feel confused, dizzy, and even have increased cravings. Eating carbohydrates, sugary or fatty foods, and not exercising can all cause blood sugar spikes. But now you have help in managing blood sugar levels. Sweeties by Youngevity was designed to help support healthy blood sugar levels so you can power through your day. It's a synergistic blend of minerals, herbs, and nutrients that have been proven to support healthy blood sugar levels. Sweeties includes chromium, an essential trace mineral that's known for its contribution to healthy blood sugar levels and improved metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Cinnamon bark has been included for its naturally occurring antioxidants and support of a healthy heart. And we've even added gymnema. It's been used in Ayurveda for centuries to help promote healthy blood sugar. All the ingredients in Sweeties work together to give the best support available for blood sugar control. Sweeties, the blood sugar support supplement from Youngevity that helps control cravings and manage blood sugar levels through your day. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rim, paint, and tires.
We We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
As you age, factors like health, weight, diet, and lifestyle can all impact your bones, joints, and general mobility. Even everyday exercise can lead to wear and tear on your body. Over time, you might start to experience stiffness or pain due to damaged joints or connective tissue. Ultimate Glucogel by Youngevity was created to help you limit the effects of wear on your joints. It delivers a daily dose of collagen-rich gelatin your body needs for joint elasticity and maintenance. Ultimate Glucogel contains a 1-to-1 ratio of gelatin and glucosamine sulfate, which is a key building block of your bone matrix, cartilage, ligaments, tendons, and connective tissue. Gelatin's unique blend of amino acids not only help with muscle and joint health, but also has been shown to provide additional benefits for the brain, skin, and hair. Ultimate Glucogel. Natural, optimal daily support for joint health. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
And we are back talking on this Wellness Wednesday about the importance of paying attention to the health of the irregular migrant communities among us, because they could definitely be impacting the health of the general population. So this is why you don't need to turn away and say, oh, who cares? You better care, because your health is also possibly being impacted. You would have heard Dr. Marcus Cooper on earlier in the show talking about the increase that they're seeing in things like stomach cancer and other conditions that could directly be related to contaminated water tables. So this is definitely something that we need to be paying close attention to. You would have heard in the last clip the doctor speak about mental health. That's definitely a challenge for many migrant communities, according to the research done by the World Health Organization. Migrants and refugees, especially those who have experienced conflicts, are exposed to a higher risk of mental health distress and disorders, and the prevalence of depression and anxiety can be higher among refugees and migrants at different stages of the displacement and migration based on various individual, social, and environmental factors. PTSD is frequently observed in children and adolescents, conflict-affected refugees. And according to information that came forth in that press conference, that PTSD could be both a combination of the trauma that these persons would have gone through, whether it be in the journey to the host country or the rejection that they receive when they get to the host country. Both those factors combined can lead to PTSD. Again, why should you care? Because sometimes persons with PTSD aren't only harmful to themselves, but could be harmful to others as well. So this is definitely a concern for our entire community. Now, last clip of the day, the need for screening. Yes, the Bahamas is already paying an exorbitant amount of money to provide free health care. However, we need to be paying closer attention to screening for potential diseases that could impact the entire community. You cannot fix what you do not acknowledge. And so in this clip, we're going to learn about why it is so important that countries around the world beef up their screening processes when it comes to determining what health concerns there are in these irregular migrant communities.
The urgent collective action that we can take is screening for both physical and mental health conditions. This is something that not only leads to treatment, but also is extremely important to prevention. Many of these migrants and refugees who come in, they come in with various levels or various chronic diseases. from heart conditions to so many others, but they also come in with PTSD, severe anxiety, and depression. So if we don't screen them, and sadly, I work in the NHS, and it doesn't happen in many other countries as well. I'm not picking just on the NHS. It is that sort of at the point level of screening or somewhere that they can come in and confidently, without the fear of being persecuted, without the fear of being their data being used against them, objectively, just for the sake of their healthcare, they're reassured that come in and we would like to have a chat with you. They're assessed by clinical psychologists, by general practitioners, not for them to wait to the point where they have a crisis, where they self-harm, whether they have a heart attack or whether they have many other problems, and then we pick up the pieces in the emergency department, and that's how we overburden the healthcare system, because we're not getting it right at the start.
I thought that was a very interesting point. It's not just a matter of saying, well, why should we spend this money up front to screen? Well, if you don't, you could be putting a further burden, according to that doctor, on the healthcare system later on. So, you pay some up front or you pay some later, but bottom line is you're going to pay. So it just makes sense that we try to address this up front, I would think, so that we're not overburdening our healthcare system, so that when Bahamians or anyone else needs healthcare, they're not turned away because of, being overburdened by a community, that is here as a result of irregular migration. So these are all things that we need to really be concerned about. There's some other things that came forth in the press conference that I don't think we will have time to get to today. They talked about access and equity in many of the countries around the world. Now, I don't think we have as much of a problem with that here in the Bahamas because we do provide free healthcare. But there are other concerns like the fear of being arrested, perhaps, that may cause somebody not to be so quick to come forward and receive health care for fear of being repatriated back to their native lands. So these are all things that we need to consider. Another thing that they talked about in that press conference, again, that I don't think we will have time to get to today, maybe we can. They talked about surveillance, the importance of surveillance. And I think this is one area that we dropped down on. Let's go to this final clip.
We've seen it throughout COVID pandemic that access to healthcare for refugees in particular, sadly, is not uniform. So it varies from country to country, it varies from region to region, and that's where all the other health determinants come into play. So when we're talking about health, if we look at it from the social, physical, and the mental well-being perspective, we'll be able to see that there are so many factors that are interplay. And in my view, in achieving universal health coverage, if we look at refugees and migrants as a whole, rather than just look at, for example, if they're catching COVID or not catching COVID, or they're at risk of one disease or another. So we are ignoring everything else that's going around them. And that's why this report is amazingly so extensive, that it identifies and highlights and puts a foundation in place on which we can base our research, our contributions, and how the policies are changed in the future. So we can revisit it again and see how much of progress we've made.
One of the, I think, important suggestions that the report makes is for increased surveillance of the condition of the migrants and refugees when they arrive, or indeed as they are moving towards their destinations. Many of them, of course, either as a result of the poor conditions from which, health provision conditions from which they're leaving, or the difficulties of the journeys they have to make, arrive with already severe problems, health problems. And these are not known, or they are disguised, or they're not even acknowledged, perhaps, by the refugees themselves. So one of the recommendations is precisely to sharpen that surveillance of the conditions of the refugees and migrants.
All right, so that's a challenge that we're throwing out on GPS today to our the persons responsible for healthcare in the country, and that is that, well, I guess it'll be a combined effort of healthcare as well as immigration and other agencies, that we step it up as it relates to surveillance and screening to better protect the health of the entire population. Something to think about. Well, that's my time, guys. Time is gone. Tomorrow, I'm working on it. I hope to have all of my guests confirmed before the end of the day. But, you know, with all of this question going on now about the Our Father prayer and should we remove Father and all these other things during Holy Week, nonetheless, this is a conversation we need to have. All right. So hopefully I have one guest confirmed, but they're only doing 1 hour. So hopefully I'll have the others confirmed by end of day. And we're going to have a really good conversation about this. Is the gospel under attack? Let's talk about it tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. Have a good one.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network.